TerraSkin is fairly new on the market for artistic use, and it is paper made from calcium carbonate and resin. And for difference to regular paper, it has a bit less structure in it, in the sense that if you take a regular paper, you can lean it on the wall and to stand there. And with TerraSkin, if you want to lean it, it slouches because it doesn't have the fiber to support it. So you have to store it horizontally. But it is extremely tough paper. It's heavy. It's quite nice to paint on in water media, and it is actually a paper that comes in quite nice sizes for this as well. One size is 18 by 26 approximately inches, and the other size is about 25 by 36 inches approximately. And so these two sizes are quite nice for watercolor painting and for drawing or using with acrylic. Any water media, any drawing media is perfectly fine on this paper. Because the paper is calcium carbonate with resin, it does not absorb a lot of water, so you need to use a lot less water than you would normally use in painting on watercolor paper. But it does absorb a little, and because it does, and because it's absorbing slowly, it creates some really beautiful effects if you want to glaze and if you want to do it a little bit wet in wet. It's quite interesting. The surface of the TerraSkin paper is extremely resistant to damage, to any. You can scratch it, it does not scratch. You can scrape it. You can do a lot of interesting effects on the surface without actually damaging paper. If you were doing that on regular watercolor paper, you would damage the paper and you will cause quite different effects by scratching it than you would on TerraSkin paper. So this first demonstration is going to be one that will demonstrate some of these techniques and actually the property of paper. Besides being surface resistant, it also is quite resistant as far as tears. So this here, I'm tearing a piece of a sample that TerraSkin company gave me, and it is quite tough. You see, you can bend it, but it does not tear actually. It'll stretch a little bit. So now I'll be demonstrating some of these scratching and textural effects on TerraSkin paper. This is a 18 by 25 size of TerraSkin paper, and I'm going to be using some FW inks. So I'm putting some ink here and a little bit of blue ink. Oh, this is all FW ink, acrylic. And with my roller, I'm going to roll this here and produce some effects with this roller. I'm creating a shape because I'm going to do an abstract here, and I'll put a little bit more yellow into it. So this is metallic paint. So now I'm going to scrape some, and I can scrape more or less in here. As you can see, I'm scraping with a nut on the, and nothing is being damaged on this paper. And actually, if I roll, I can draw lines on it with this as well. And I can then soften some of the effects and leave it not as obvious as that. So I will use a few more lines in here and then turn into another color. I have a little sketch here that I'm following that I did before I started the demo. And also I want to point out, if you roll more with the roller, you will get finer texture. If you leave it quite wet and roll a little bit on the wet, the texture is more visible. So here I'm rolling transition, and here I'm rolling transition, and here I'm going to leave this as is. So here it is. So this is ink. Now I'm going to use a little bit of red gouache. And this gouache is actually Lascaux gouache in liquid form. I quite like it and I use it a lot. So I'm going to roll that out to create fields of different color. And before I do that, I clean my roller. And here I go with this again. And because gouache is opaque, I can roll it over my green here and create a little transition of dark, because green and red, when they mix, they create some grays. So this is nice. So this is why I needed this very soft layer with not too much paint in it. And here I go back and put a nice color in here. And so we are relating color from one end to the other in order to create an interesting composition. So I need to, okay, here. And I'm going to put few lines in here to create connection between the top and the bottom, just kind of compositionally, and here. So I want to use a little bit more of yellow in here to just connect again. Quite like it the way it is right now. And here I can do some of this combination of yellow, gold, and red to connect to the other side of the paper. And with these abstracts, I like to cover the paper fully rather than leaving some of the whites in. If I want the white, I can always put the white gouache into it and create a white surface. But I think this kind of is interesting here with this connection, and maybe here I can put few marks in red again to create a connection like that, and maybe some in here. Make interesting marks, and still I can scrape and draw lines and scrape more. If I want, I could use a little bit of ink, a little bit of black ink, India ink, on a here I dropped it, but that's okay. I can always roll it out. And here I would like to have some lines in black, but not too much of it, just for additional depth in this painting and additional value. So here we go. A little bit more ink. Some of the ink can be also used with some Chinese brushes that, you know, that creates very nice effect too. But I think for this purpose, I don't want more than this. It's fine the way it is. So here I'll just do a bit there, and then I can just do the little signature here. I want to remove this painting from the background that is kind of dirty and show you how that looks like on in a mat. Now that we see it better in this mat, and it's isolated from all the dirt, we can see that maybe we can scrape additionally with a scraper like this, or any other scraper that you can create yourself from any plastic material. And you can, by drawing it down, you can create some additional lines in this area, or, you know, whatever you like. Here, for example, you can, you know, scrape out away more, or you can for example, add a little bit more of a texture with the mark in here, for example, like that, to connect with the other marks that have been created in this area here. I hope that you're going to be using TerraSkin paper and experimenting with this. I think it's a wonderful surface to do these experimental techniques of any kind you can imagine. I have only shown a little part of what is possible on TerraSkin. I hope that you will watch the next video, which is going to be dealing with more watercolor effect on this surface rather than this very opaque effect. Happy painting!